What would be the strap line for us to clip it at the start of YouTube?
It's kind of like stop building stuff that requires external validation. Welcome. We are giving you another episode of Don't Be a Doorstop. I have obviously gone for this pink tinted concrete wall behind me. It's one of those things I need to get a better setup because it takes me ages to set things up and be in the right place in the right room. I wish there was like, you know, the guy with the green screen laptop going down a water slide. I think I need something like that so then I can be anywhere and do it.
That they attach to your seats, just a circle.
Oh, like a green screen thing. Yeah, it would make sense.
You can literally sit anywhere.
It would make it so much easier because the faff of like getting the right location of the room and stuff, especially because we've got like drum kit and stuff and music things. So I'm like trying to make sure that there's not too much in the background. But I recognize
you could have an arty with the drum kit and stuff, or is it too fuffy trying to set design?
Annoyingly, it is hard to set design because I think the room's a bit too small. There's not enough like depth in the room. Because usually, you know how YouTubes have it, they have their camera and then there's actually quite a big room behind them, isn't there? So then there's more space. Whereas here, I don't think the angles quite work, but I'm sure if I had it right against the wall and filmed into the room, it would make sense. But then you'd have to make sure that every part of the room is tidy. Exactly. But yeah, that's how it goes. Yeah. One thing I've wanted to share on the pod. So I've
going in with a hot take already.
Definitely, we've got to start. Hut. I have readjusted some kind of like purpose and fulfillment kind of attributes about myself. So I felt like I have this regular occurrence where I get to a point where I feel like I'm not being impactful, and I start to analyze why is that happening, and more so, why is that happening in a repeat fashion? I then realized that the reason why I get triggered in that way is because, not triggered, but the reason why I feel that way is because I don't get enough external encouragement from the things that I do. So I will do something or I'll be working on something, and I hope that then the external person or the external parties encourage me or say, oh, that was really helpful to hear, or oh, that was really good. And then that encouragement feeds back into me in this like circular, kind of like full circle moment. But if you don't get, and that then feels like, oh, cool, I'm having impact, because I'm expecting impact to be a measurement of external encouragement. Now it's hard because I can't control the external encouragement. It happens when it happens, right? So then I've decided, rather than having that big circle where it goes from internal, it goes external and back in internal, and be like, cool, I feel like I've got impact. I've just reevaluated to find things that I can focus on myself that gives me a sense of impact because I am utterly internally fulfilled. So an outworking of that is if I analyze the things that I'm doing, am I enjoying it for myself, or am I enjoying doing something because I'm hoping that somebody that sees the thing that I do or gets to receive the thing that I do gives me back encouragement to say, oh, I really like it. And then that is it. So I'm always symbolizing, like gesturing this like big circle versus small circle, right? An external thing versus internal. Now, the reason why I've struggled to internalize it is because I think I've been a bit scared, like committing to something. And I'll tell you what it is. So I've broadly now been like, cool, I'm going to focus on two things: making money through apps and like products, and drumming for Kimmer. And I think the reason why I've probably been scared to conclude those is, one, on the drumming side, I have been in the past a bit worried about disappointing her and not being a very good drummer, for example. And I wouldn't want that to happen. Therefore, I've not said, oh, I'll be your drummer, or not committed to do that, even though logically it makes sense, absolute sense.
So this is just drumming for Kimmer right now, not just any drumming, correct?
Yes, yeah. So like committing to doing drumming, because when I really think about, cool, if you're not going to do this like external need of encouragement to feel that you have impact, why not look at the things that you feel like you've enjoyed the most? And in my whole life, I've enjoyed moments of drumming. When I've drummed, those have been the best moments. And then when I've been like designing products or building products, those have also been the best moments. So I'm trying to just take those moments where I feel the most fulfilled and try to focus on them. So in me committing and trying to visualize with detail me being the drummer for Kimmer, like what that will look like, what kind of stadiums I want to be playing, what kind of world tour, like what will my lifestyle look like with that being the conclusion that I am the drummer and therefore XYZ happens. I've kind of been like excited by it more, and the apprehension or the nervousness disappears because, again, coming back to all our sport mindset stuff that we've been talking about, I feel like I can practice and rehearse, and I will practice and rehearse to be good if I don't feel good, and to get it right if I'm not getting it right. So it's just like well, of course I'm going to put in the time and the effort because I really like this thing and I want to do a good job. So in me, like settling with that as a thing, it makes me feel fulfilled, and I have control over that opportunity to kind of like feel internally fulfilled by just doing it. And then the second thing is like, yeah, making money through products and stuff. Again, I think I've probably been a little bit concerned that making money for yourself is a bad thing, kind of thing, right? And I've just been like, no, actually, I really like making products and I need to pay rent. So making money is for yourself is not a bad thing. And just like readjusted again the thing, rather than saying, oh, well, I'm making this product for that person over there so that person benefits. Well, actually, I want to make money so I can have a particular lifestyle that allows me to build products with flexibility and without the pressure of that it needs to pay rent or whatever, and also be able to be drumming and doing world tours and so forth. So in just realigning with those two broad picture things, I can then get excited by visualizing the detail of those two things. And then it's like, cool, I've almost removed the need for an external source of encouragement and been a little bit more, I feel fulfilled. So then I feel impactful, because that was the age old thing, right? I don't feel impactful because I basically wait on external encouragement. So I've kind of changed that now to be like, I can feel impactful if I'm doing the things that I love really well. Like I'm a very good drummer, I'm a very good designer and builder. Like committing to those and doing those well it's kind of like, again, if we talk about like God's purpose or what God wants you to be doing, like these skills and these things weren't given to you for like no reason for you not to use them. So in utilizing them, you feel like utterly fulfilled. Then there is a natural byproduct of affecting other people with that, right? It's kind of like, how do you, one, it's impact, but it's also influence. How can you be how can you be somebody of most influence others? Sometimes it's not about telling other people what they should be doing, but like doing it for yourself. So if you want to tell someone, oh, you should be getting fit, like, are you ripped? Are you super healthy? Do you have like no sicknesses, no illnesses and stuff, right? To be able to be a kind of like a little bit of the, shining light vibe. So other people then, oh, maybe I should be, getting fit and so forth. So again, like it's about being the spearhead as like a method or a vehicle to be influential, rather than just telling people stuff with wisdom or whatever. Yeah.
Nice. And how does it feel now going around in those circles, the new circles?
I think it feels like there's more control over the outcome. So of course I can basically tap in to be feeling way more excited, way more like impactful, because I have a like a better control of the variables that have been put into the machine. So it feels liberating, and it feels like, cool, I actually don't need to have this feeling of like I'm less impactful. And the additional thing of like, I think there's a drive in me that I'm never quite satisfied, which is fine. Like that's, I think, to me, I like that because it basically means that I'm innovative. So in seeing this pattern, I can enjoy the fact that I'm innovative just to myself, like within myself. So I benefit from that kind of like drive stuff as well. And yeah, it's just realigned like anything. It's like defragging your computer, right? It's reordered everything, absolute clarity. There's more energy. There's more focus to then carry on doing the goal of building these two like pillars almost, and utilizing my skills in those ways.
So what would be the strap line for us to clip it for the start of YouTube? How Dan can save your life from your misery.
I think it's more so about you need to stop building things on the. Oh, let me riff it first. Because this is going to be straight off the dome, right? We're like, don't cut this into it, right? Cut it. We haven't said that in ages. It's kind of like stop building stuff that requires external validation, right? So stop building processes, or stop building ecosystems that rely on external encouragement to keep you going. That's it. So like create that internal encouragement more. So then it's more, basically more predictable, right? You can manage it a bit better and everything. So I would say, but yeah.
Nice. Wrapping the mug as always.
Yeah, and I've realized that I have to speak while I've got the mug, because otherwise it won't look at me. So I have to drink and also talk at the same time.
You'll have to master your puppeteering.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think again as well, the more you share these ideas and these concepts, and you riff these concepts in your own head, I think you then find the best way to articulate it. So I'm really glad that I spoke a lot with it about Kim, and actually Kim brought this angle to it, like, hey, I think there's this thing that you're kind of utilizing, and maybe you should internalize it more, because that's exactly what she's done and found way more fulfillment in that as well. So then in just riffing it and telling other people, you can figure out the formalized method and clarity to it. And it reminds me of something else that I've started to trigger on there was this podcast that we listened to last night on a really long drive about guys and what guys want to feel like specifically in church contexts and so forth. And I don't always agree with the narratives of like guys are in I don't really understand those ideas as such. I don't resonate with those things. But one thing that they were saying is about guys want to be good communicators, and guys want to be leaders. So do we create
is that all guys or a section of guys?
Well, everything is a generalization, right? But for guys to stay in church, they want to be help them to be good communicators, because good communicators basically get promoted for leadership, and they want to be leaders. They want to be revered, right? So I don't always agree with that positioning, because ultimately, to me, that sounds like somebody's turned up at a church day one, and they're like, look how everybody's like really liking this preacher person. I want to be that person. Like, that's not necessarily the right way about it, right? You want to be like that. That's why I don't necessarily agree that it's right for us to want to be the person on the stage, because leadership is always such a mix of, yes, it could be on the stage, but it also might not be. It's kind of like the last person, right? That's kind of like making sure the last person is encouraged to do something and is like leading from the back. And that's sometimes what leadership looks like, as well as sometimes leadership doesn't even include a group of people, right? It might be just leading your own situation and your own stuff that then becomes inspiring to other people. It's not that you have any sort of leadership or management capacity over a group or over other people either. But yeah, I just found it really interesting about the whole people wanting to be good communicators. And also it was saying in this podcast that guys notice that good communicators are relished and like celebrated, whereas bad communicators or people aren't as good aren't so much. So then they drop out, because ultimately there is a proportion of guys that want to be leaders, but they're not very good. So they're not going to get that, oh, I want to be revered or whatever. Like, I don't agree with that concept. It doesn't align with biblical kind of like position of servant leadership, right? Yeah. So it's a fascinating thing. Personally, for me, I have wanted to communicate particularly from a stage, because one, I've been there long enough and I've paid my dues in other ways to make sure that it's not an ego thing. And also I think I'm pretty decent at communicating and wanting to utilize that skill to convey ideas to encourage others. And that's nothing to do with me. Although fast forward 5 minutes, you just heard, oh, basically, do I encourage others mainly to hear back encouragement? Or do I just encourage others? And I would say I just encourage others. It's not always about what you get back, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do we, because you and I, like, how do we fit into that? Like, have we felt those things? Have we not? Like, yeah, and how do we create the right focuses and disciplines to feel basically respected and fulfilled, or like respected and utilized, or like celebrated? Because not everybody is going to be a communicator, like in that particular fashion, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you therefore will never have influence, or therefore you'll never help people. I think we've kind of glamorized certain specific roles, for example, a worship leader or a preacher, and we've glamorized those as the main places where you're going to have influence, and going to enjoy the attention of.
Yeah. There's two things that comes to my brain. Is one, I was just thinking of people that want to be leaders but don't have any communication skills. So I was just imagining someone preaching through grunting at the front and everyone amening. Yeah.
Yeah, the numbers
So
are
that
growing,
is my intrusive thought of the day.
Mm.
One thing I've noticed is it's way more louder when I've turned my mic more like this. I'm speaking down it. Fun fact.
You've just blown the ears of all the listeners.
Yeah, yeah. I'll need it.
I always like speak off, so then it's not so like putty, like
direct in someone's ear.
Yeah,
He's stealing.
Stay in the flow. Stay in the flow.
Yeah, all my intrusive thoughts. And the last bit is I've forgotten.
So you're saying about, imagine somebody with no communication skills.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Good.
Is it not the fact that they want to be good communicators, or is it more the fact that they want to be known? Because like you're on the stage, you're more likely to do analogies, or you're more likely to even just see the person's personality through preaching or singing, or know them a little bit more than the congregation. So is it more that they want to be known, and that's the way in how they'd be known, but they don't know it?
I don't know. I think people,
power.
broadly speaking, people want to be liked, right? They want to be celebrated, because if you think of history, we typically celebrate historical figures. We talk about them a lot. Like, I think that it's probably they want to feel good, which is fine. That's completely fine, because really it's about connection, right? They want connection. And maybe the quickest, easiest way to have connection is start preaching from the front, because that's just like a route one type of football approach, right down the middle kind of thing. When really it's a case of, everything doesn't, like, influence doesn't need to be in that fashion. But I'm not saying that it's bad for people to want leadership, because there are people that want to lead, are good at leading, and should lead. So it's just a case of measuring the drive to make sure that that's actually like the correct drive, rather than like, oh, I want to be wanted. I'm not sure if I 100% agree that that's a good like baseline thing of like, I want to be wanted.
I guess it's the most obvious job, in the sense that you see it and you can see all the glory that you might see, not the breakdown. I've started the tennis series on Netflix, because you mentioned it on the weekend. Breaking Point, is it?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is you notice, okay, you might know the tennis player's name, their background, how many kids they've got, their lifestyle, but actually they have a coach that's always with them. And actually, one will be a tennis coach, one will be a sports coach, one will be a physio. And you'll get to know all these other teams that actually is linked to the success. But you're always more likely than not, unless you're in those industries, clearly link the success to the individual. So like if you have but also the individual probably gets paid the most and it gets drip fed down. So similar to a church, you'd probably have the pastor or the worship leader is probably the next one that gets paid, and then everything gets spilled down, even though actually the worship leader, that's more often than not a guitarist, piano player or singer, actually needs the drums or the bassist or whatever. But it's difficult, because I think everyone likes the thought of the front runner, I guess, likes the idea of it and probably even blinds out the fact of all the difficult conversations that you might be able to have or need to have with others through the week, but they just see the Sunday, they just see the performance, they don't see the training. Basically, similar to tennis, they see the Wimbledon win rather than all year round you've lost and you've broken a leg and you're coming back.
Yeah, which is more so where character comes in, right? So yes, everybody sees the highlight reel and like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have this influence where you're talking from the front? And that's not the reality, the singular, the only thing that happens. There is a lot more of character, a lot more engagement, lots more stuff going on in the background, let alone the other people in the background that assist with something going the way that it goes. But yeah, I guess it's just like trying to make sure that really guys in the church like try and find their own thing for themselves. Again, when we're talking about this circle of like going from internal to external and then back again, like it might be that rather than saying, hey, you want to lead, well, everybody, every single person, every individual is a leader in some capacity, some shape or form. And then whether or not you could just change it. So like, hey, how do you feel fulfilled as an individual? Like, how do you feel like what I was saying before, like internally fulfilled with what you're doing? They were also saying in this pod, a bunch of guys are coming to church wanting discipleship. Now, I think their word discipleship is interchangeable with mentorship, but then nobody would mentor them, right? And they're wanting guys to mentor them. And I was wondering whether or not that's a bit of a blend. So one of the comments he then said, like, oh, the old guys are like, oh, look at all these like young kids that are like CEOs or successful or whatever, earning a bunch of money or whatever. And it all comes down to, again, like the annoyance of comparison. We all fall foul to comparison. Again, remove external kind of needs or visuals or inputs and just internalize things. Like, so for example, if somebody was asking you for mentorship and they were asking you for mentorship about, well, just to be like, have another guy to chat through ideas or problems or issues or like visions and stuff. Let's say that guy's vision is to have a family or whatever, and you were single. You might be like, oh, I'm not sure how I feel insecure, or I don't feel like I can input into this. So it's all about what do you want, and can you just change things to kind of mitigate out. So the older guys like, oh, we don't feel like we can relate to these young guys because these young guys have done loads better than us. So how can we mentor them? You know?
Yeah.
I think mentorship might be like really just another person. Like people typically aren't insignificant. They'll have some sort of relevant experience or something, even though the scenarios might not be the same. But in the same vein, there's no point going to ask somebody how to run a business if they've never run a business, right? There is a relevance aspect to things. But if you're just wanting general guy mates, then it doesn't need to be like for like all the time. Yeah. Like friendship, basically, like bromances. Doesn't need to be like for like.
Yeah. I haven't not got much to add to.
I've also been thinking about how organizations, let's say for argument's sake, we've created this ecosystem in the church where you'll be revered or be like worshipped if you're the guy on stage, right? Then charismatic people typically are the people that go to the stage, right? So how do you make sure that charismatic people or like confident people or good things don't happen to be also narcissists and egocentric? Now, egos, I think, are okay within measurement, right? Because I would say it's a kind of like it's blended with confidence. So there is you should be confident, and there is a right level of kind of like self-confidence and stuff, which is kind of like, I would say maybe a little bit of ego. You do want a little bit of confidence, right? Self-confidence. But when that comes too much, then when there's a fall from grace, like a mistake or something, that then alienates a bunch of people, rightly so. How do we then create organizations which are basically faceless, so we don't have those moments where we're basically attracted to somebody's ability to communicate or like whip up a crowd or whatever, and we still have the impact and the good stuff that they share?
Well, I guess it's okay to have that joy, because it's as if you can have that joy into seeing Nadal or Federer, keeping on the tennis analogy, of how amazing they are. But I guess it's going, what bit about them do you like? Is it the fact that they've got a lot of money? Is it the fact that they're good at talking with people? Is it because they're how their personas come across.
Mm.
And then it's I think how you perceive situations, positive or negative, sometimes can be the greatest mirrors to understand what's actually going on in your own heart, mind, soul, whatever you want it, gut.
Mm.
Of if you're jealous of a Federer, of a Nadal, but you're not jealous of the person that's 100th in the rankings, it's like, okay, then what part are you jealous? Is it the fame? Is it the money? Or is it the fact they're playing tennis? But actually, if you're 100th and can, let's say, have a full-time pay, but you're not jealous of them because you're like, actually, I'm not that bothered about tennis. I more want this thing. It just shows you what your values or beliefs are, if you know them or not, I guess, which is interesting. And I think it's definitely worth taking that, what is getting highlighted, and then lifting up a mirror and going, okay, what is it that I like about this person? It might be just the basic fact that it's like, there's a guy, it's like, oh, they could grow a cool beard or whatever. It's like, cool, that's okay to be like, that's awesome, to encourage someone, because you might be just an encourager, to be like, that's awesome. I'm going to try my best next November or whatever. But then if you don't do it, it's not going, that person's better or worse. And I think it's adding an element of judgment after it. It's just going, cool, I can appreciate that person, but I don't need to become them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that sort of adds to your point.
Yeah, it is about kind of like the baseline characteristics and where they get their inspirations from. So then you can manage things. So let's say that like we're all fallible for mistakes, right? We're not perfect. I'm not perfect. So watching out for the bigger picture thing, really, and trying to engage in that rather than specifically the person's character, to avoid like the disappointment or the breakdown of everything's been piled on this one individual. Yeah, because I think in churches it typically does happen like that. There's one particular individual that gets to become the face of some movement or collection of groups, group of churches or whatever, and it becomes like the higher up the ladder you go, the further you have to fall. All those like analogies. So how do you avoid that thing to keep on the movement of like basically being Jesus' apprentice, right? Rather than being humans and following humans, although it's fine to be encouraged and like inspired by humans, but I guess it's like, where do they get their inspiration off, and trying to always find the baseline stuff.
Yeah, I remember chatting to a bishop. I think he was Bishop of Sherwood back when in my fourth year of uni, and I was doing an internship with the Church of England. Background being a Baptist, so I knew nothing, but doing sports ministry, which was interesting. And what he used to say is, being a bishop is everyone would want him to pray or encourage or whatever, as if it's like this secret sauce.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, if let's say it's someone in, they're at a hospital and want prayer for healing or want encouragement through their difficult time, is a lot of the time he'll go, the trick is you take someone with you, you might lead the whole situation, they can observe. Then you go again, that other person leads the prayer or the encouragement, you observe. The next time, that person either goes alone or takes someone else. And it was so super basic to the point of, because the point is Jesus, the point isn't me. Because if I go on my own, the dependence is on me. And then if I go again on my own, dependence on me. If I bring someone else into it, sometimes when you bring them too late, well, they've created a bond with you, so you can't always necessarily offload it, / it might look like a negative thing that you're ditching you off to this other guy because you've took on too much or whatever, rather than going, cool, no, it's more of just a natural way of, this guy, I trust this guy as well. He trusts him because he's opened up to him coming on that journey of a bishop. And I guess it's that sort of golden handshake of, if the manager was like, oh, this is a great player, trust my skills of under 16, I want to bring him into the first team, you give more likely the benefit of the doubt. Okay, there is an element of they'll find their feet in it, but you'd like to think, okay, you could do that process over a long period of time. He was just given a small example. But it is that you're slowly handing off the baton to other people that might be genuinely really passionate about ministering to people through illness, and they might have even more of a background. Maybe they've got a nursing or doctoring like background, or maybe they've just been through pain or difficulty themselves. But because you've just got this sort of bishop identity, job role, whatever you want to call it, it's as if people think you're closer to God, like you've got this holiness. And I think he was quite good at, I guess, just grounding people in the fact that even though he was very intelligent, very switched on, and I could understand why people would want a piece of him to some extent. I think he realizes if he did that to everyone, he would be everything to nobody to some extent. So it's that actually his discernment and wisdom of bringing people along and journeying it. A, it builds up other people, and then B, it offloads necessarily responsibility. But as well, if that person then takes other people, whatever, they can still come back to you and ask you questions. It doesn't mean that it's fully over. And actually, you might want to go and visit now with 2 other people that are more praying just because you feel prompted to. And I guess it just frees you up rather than tying you up into responsibility for the responsibility's sake, because you put yourself there rather than because you have to be there.
It's so fascinating, and that makes a lot of sense. The expectations because of an outfit, right, or a projection, and it's trying to like avoid those internally and externally, right? Internally, try and assess and self-analyze the right drivers, and then secondary, seeing it within other people and expecting other people to have it all sorted or whatever.
Fun thought to ponder on.
We're
hitting the 30-minute mark.
I think to like wrap up or conclude a little, it's interesting that people want to, like, men want to, or again, generalizing, generally men want to be good communicators so they can be good leaders, which is cool. How do you become a good communicator? What's one thing that you would start with?
The end. Was that a question?
That was a question for you. I thought you were going to come in with like a...
Oh, I thought it's like, and we're leaving it on that for next time.
Yeah, comment in, like, what makes somebody a good communicator? Have you got a thought? If not, I'll answer.
I always thought it was marketing, going into marketing, but then I realized you just learn a lot of theory and it doesn't actually help you. So I think it is just getting into different circles, getting to know different people's backgrounds, where they've come from, what they've gone through. You learn by trial and error of how to communicate your heart, their heart, asking a lot of questions, understanding what they're trying to say, because even though someone's communicating to you, you might think what they're trying to say, but they're actually trying to communicate something else. So it's understanding where they're coming from and equally where you want to take them, because as well, people's backgrounds, you might say one thing, but they might take it another thing.
You've done you've done it beautifully well. The question is, how do you become a good communicator? And you've basically been like, become a good listener. I like that. And I think that's true. I think listening is a good part, and that relaying back.
And understanding yourself, so you're not projecting pain from your own situation onto someone else's situation and think they might be going through something that they're not. AKA what we call as shadow boxing, when you're boxing against your past self or your mental health or emotional health that you might be doing in front of people, which is okay if it's a safe space, rather than you're doing it unintentionally.
Yeah. I think for me, kind of alongside your marketing point, although you said there's sometimes a bit more theory, I think storytelling is a big part of communication. So telling stories, figuring out that, and figure out, like, find people that tell good stories. Like, comedians are very good storytellers. They're very good communicators because they play on the things that they do tell you, and they play on the things that they don't tell you, the things that you think. So I think storytelling is probably, like, get good at telling stories. That's one way to get better at communication.
The end.
And on
that's a wrap. Like and subscribe.
See you next time. Like and subscribe.